What's up, wild animals? I'm Melanie Vesey, and welcome to another Promotional Rescue talk show. I'm a stand-up comedian, actress, and filmmaker, and if you want to see any of my work, my comedy special, my movies, you can do that over at melanievesey.com. But I'm also a promotions consultant with my own company called Promotional Rescue, where I teach people how to promote themselves without feeling gross. And if you want to know anything about my services, who I work with, what have you, what I do, you can get that over at promotionalrescue.com. Just a heads up, February 20th, I am giving a website 101 workshop. It's only a $25 suggested donation. I will be teaching you how to situate your website so that it works for you, so it makes you look like a pro. And also, too, I'll be teaching you how to build it on Squarespace, just the basics. Now, some people have asked me, but I'm on Wix and I'm on WordPress. That's totally fine. The first half of the workshop, I'll be talking about the photos and the text and where to put stuff, the colors, how to make sure that this website actually is of service to you and what you're doing, promoting you and or your creative biz or your project. But the second half, I'll be going through step by step, teaching you the basics of how to turn on a website on Squarespace or how to update it, where to put the photos, where to put the text, how to do all that stuff on the back end. So you can get all that information and or sign up at promotionalrescue.com. Please share with a friend that might need a little website love. On the show today, Kristen McGuiness. Now, she is an LA Times bestselling author. She is a New York Times bestselling editor. She has a book called 5150, and she is a fantastic writer. However, she is also a book coach, and I am taking her class right now called 5 Weeks to Book Proposal. I'm currently working on the Promotional Rescue workbook. It's going to be a book talking about personal stories, client stories, and also to how to rescue your promotion, but all in book form. And it's been an incredible process so far. And it's really helping me figure out how to get clarity on this story. And Kristen is amazing at it. She's offering another one of those coming up. She's also offering a 5 months to memoir book coaching as well. You can get all that information about her services, what she does over at storyboxing.com. And she also offers, like if you can't go to the workshop or what have you, she also has what's the word I'm looking for? An online version of it on Teachable, which is really super helpful as well. Storyboxing.com. We really had a great conversation about Kristen because not only has she written her own book, she's also ghostwritten many books. And during the pandemic, she had this kind of come to Jesus that she realized that she didn't just want to be the co-pilot anymore. And she really wanted to step into the light, which is what so many people do, which is that they realize that they want to be the person out in front. And then she realized that she had to kick up her social media game, getting on Instagram, what have you, and making sure that she's building a community, which is something that I've always said the word audience. And I feel like actually the word community is maybe a better word for that. And we really went into in-depth conversation about that. And then over on my Patreon, we talked about, the challenges of what that looks like, to stepping out and being that person that's right on the front lines, talking about what they do. And she has done it with great success. So I hope you guys enjoy this. And if you are an author, this is definitely, or if you're thinking about writing a book, you have a friend that's writing a book, this is the episode to watch. So thanks for tuning in, you guys. Hey, Kristen.
Hello.
How are you? I'm so glad you're here today.
I'm so glad to be here. I love hanging out with you, even virtually. So
I know this is just a dirty trick for us to hang out more. I put together a whole podcast.
Yeah, so I really appreciate it. It's good setup. Good setup.
So, Kristen, you have done so you're an author and you have done so much. You have books that are out. You're an LA Times bestselling author, New York Times bestselling editor. You are in the world of making sure that books not only get written, but that they get to an audience, because now I'm taking your class, the 5 weeks to book proposal, which has been amazing. But here's the thing, that I noticed, which was that like we were totally like, yeah, here's the book you're writing. First order of business. What's your marketing plan? You know what I mean?
Totally.
And so share with me your promotional journey with creating that stuff and how you've kind of handled all of that.
Well, I will say we've been super lucky that the inaugural class of 5 weeks to book proposal had you in it, because it was like, so let's talk about marketing. And really for me, it was like, all right, Melanie, you take over. I think, it is for most books, and it isn't always the case. And I think you've seen, actually, it's been really interesting in the class because there's a few projects in that class that I have even said to them offline, like, platform isn't as necessary for you as it is for the rest of the folks in the course because their story is so unique, or sort of, it doesn't require that. But I would say that is 1 out of 10 stories. The other 9 of them absolutely need a platform in order to launch a book. And it's not just, it's interesting. We have like an old plane flying by right now. So hold the planes.
We can't hear it, so it's all good.
Great. We're near like one of those like old timey airfields, and on Saturdays, like it's a bunch of old men that are like, "Get out the World War II planes, guys!" So there's just like a random bomber flying by. But
amazing.
The joys of Ojai. So, but for like 90% of people, they need a platform not just to launch and sell their book, but to sell their book to an agent and a publisher and to get people actually interested in it. So it's not just when the day your book comes out that you have an audience there, but it's actually being able to prove that you already have an audience built in. And that has shifted. I mean, I started out in book publishing in the glory days of 1999. That's why you and I have haunted such similar basements in New York City. But I, at that time, platform was still something that could, it's sort of like the people who have platforms got the really big advances. But everyday folks who didn't have a platform, they could still get book deals because what platform was there really to build?
Right.
And now platforms have been democratized, which is amazing, but also has raised the bar. When you're going to sell a book, you are going up against somebody with a social media following. And if you don't have one, or you don't have some sort of proof of platform, that guy gets a book deal and you don't.
Oh,
so
I hate that story because, I work with artists all the time, and what's challenging is that, we want to believe as artists that, our art alone will stand on its own. And yes, it should, and it will. However, it will never hurt to grow an audience while you're doing this process. It will never hurt your saleability, your ability to connect with larger opportunities, it will never hurt. But it is very challenging, I think, for artists, writers and whoever to hear that, you know what I mean? Because so many people, like I say, go into this cave to write, and then they come out and then they're totally like, here I am. And then it's like, what's there?
Yeah. Yeah. Then they run back into the cave, so they're like, never mind. That was not, I didn't want it. I had nothing to say.
Talk to me about how you've dealt with that. So how did you
back into the cave? I've seen both sides, I published my book now 10 years ago. So it's been, I've ghostwritten a number of books between then and now, but the last time I had a book out with my name on it, it was 10 years ago. And I lucked out. I got a lot of actually like traditional media for it. I was on the Today Show. I was in USA Today and Marie Claire, and I had a really great publicist. And I do strongly suggest that. People, I'm like, hire your own publicist. I had a publicist from the book publisher, but they didn't do anything, and they know that. They were like, literally, they were just like, here's some radio show in Canada, and it was like, oh, great. So it was my the publicist that I hired who had booked all my great media. But then I really failed to recognize that I had to pick up that ball and run with it. That was where, that wasn't the end, that was actually the beginning. And I really, it was 2010. So a lot of these platforms were still fairly new. I mean, I got an iPhone. I remember in 2009 thinking I need to get on this Twitter thing. And then I was like, oh yeah, that Instagram, and it's funny because I wasn't even that, I was like 30. I was fairly young at the time. And I still felt like antiquated for these things that I'm now using. But I think that for me, when I then didn't, when the applause died down, I ran back into the cave because I didn't know that it wasn't just about getting the media. It was actually about building a community. And I think that that's for me become like, I don't really look at it as like even building an audience, because an audience is going to watch the show, get up and leave, and that's what happened to me. I had an audience. They watched the show, they got up and they left, and I didn't invite them back in. And, community is something that you're way more engaged in. And I really didn't recognize that that's what I had to do to continue to have that kind of public presence. So for many years, I did go back into the cave, and I just kept writing, and it wasn't really like taking me where I wanted it to take me.
Oh my God. You've said so many things that I'm so glad have come out of your mouth. You know what I mean? Because I can't stress this enough to people, because sometimes when people come to me, they think that by getting that larger opportunity, by getting the publisher, by getting the manager, by getting the agent, by getting the TV show or whatever, that they're going to handle it. And I'm telling you, they don't, or they do a little, because their roster is full. Yeah. And unless you are like the biggest of the big on that, like they're mostly just kind of sometimes going towards the biggest people. And even the biggest people, I mean, I work with some pretty major people, even that they have said that they're disappointed in their management, their agents or whatever for doing this work. So you have to do your work to push that ball forward. It's very hard because I think as artists, we do this work and we just think we're going to hand this baton off to somebody. And the truth of the matter is it's always you. You're always going to be the best person to run that show.
Yeah. And again, I mean, it was, I actually had somebody who did his job. I had a publicist who gave me all the things that you'd want. But it's that idea that like, oh, if I get the book deal and I get the Today Show, like I'm going to sit back and pop bonbons or something, and I do think it like,
and bonbons get such a bad rap. Like do the kids even know what bonbons are?
They don't even sell bonbons anymore, I don't think. But
it's ice cream, kids. It's chocolate covered ice cream.
Not this big.
And it's something that we use to say like, oh, like just housewives, like people who are well taken care of are just home, like popping bonbons. Yeah.
Well, I think there was a commercial likely in maybe the early 80s where there's like a wealthy woman sitting. I don't know if this is true. Is this it? I might have made this up when I was a kid. Honestly, it's one of those, did this exist? Did I envision it?
I don't know.
But
the marketing worked.
Of a commercial of a very wealthy woman and like a robe with like fur lined, like a fur lined, fuzzy lined robe. And she's sitting in a lounge chair by a pool with a thing of bonbons, chocolate covered ice cream balls, and she's popping them.
Now, here's the thing. The marketing worked so good that we are still talking about it 40 years later, which is fucking hilarious. Okay, back to the conversation. You were also saying about the difference between audience and community. And I'm so glad you said that, because I think I might maybe start changing my language around that, because I do always say audience, you know what I mean? But because I feel like it's kind of like a level, word that everybody understands. But you're right. We are in a conversation and we don't want to feel like we're just talking at them with a microphone. We want to feel like we are here for the conversation. I get them, they get me. We're growing together. It's like a relationship.
Yeah. Well, again, I just don't think audiences stay, where when you have a community, it's something that you're building and so I mean, that was a big piece for me when I began to see that shift. Also, I was kind of like, "Ooh, I don't want to build an audience. Like that's like, that's the icky side of promotion, you know?" But I'm like, oh, but community, like I want to be part of community. Like that feels like in alignment with my values. And like,
Yeah.
that's where, and I'm still really learning how to do that. But I think the people who have been most effective at doing it and who are also authentic. I mean, I think there are people who've built very big audiences, right? I mean, that would be like the Kardashian, like, you would never say that they, and God love them. I mean, I'm not really like, I really could care one way or the other about them, but I think that they're not interested in building a community. They've built an audience, a very, very, very big audience, you know? But I think that's why when you think of that, you're like, oh God, I don't want to do that. But that's actually because no, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
You know? And then the people I know who've actually built community, like they have big followings, but they're really interactive with those followings, you know, they know those people and I'm, you know, it's something that I've seen is actually what's really cool about social media. It's taken the ick out of social media for me because I've met really amazing women on Instagram that I'm now friends with, like in the real world, you know, and like we support each other and they, you know, we recognize that like Instagram is a tool of commerce for us. It's part of our business, but also like, it's also a tool for real, genuine community.
Yeah. And I also feel like too with community, it's like you're not just coming at them with one thing. It's like you can offer other things, right? Yeah. And so much a part of this too is about sharing. You know what I mean? It's like we're not just making posts. It's like you're sharing about what's going on with you. And it's like you wouldn't be, you know, mad at somebody if you met them at a party and they told you what was going on with them. It's like, yeah, you're just telling people what's going on with you. It's you're allowed to exist. Like it's fucking okay, you know?
Totally.
So talk to me about like when you're working with authors, because, you know, you do coaching and you have these classes, you know, you've got the 5-week book proposal and then soon you've got the 5 months to memoir, which is amazing coming up. Talk to me about like when you are working with clients specifically about that marketing packaging that, you know, because you see it on both sides. You've been the author that has sold a book to somebody, and then you've helped judge based on whether or not authors get the deal. So talk about what people are, like publishers, what they're looking for when they see that kind of stuff.
So, you know, I think I think they are looking for community. I mean, really, that's what they're looking for. And it doesn't have to be in the shape of followers. Like it doesn't, more and more, I will say there's an element of laziness around that. And last year I had an author who, he's had stuff in the New York Times. He is a beautiful writer. He's a Latinx man and he's got this like incredible story. And it was probably one of my favorite book proposals I've ever worked on. I mean, he's just such a beautiful writer and he has 10,000 Instagram followers, but he lectures across the country in normal lecture times.
Right.
You know, he does a lot of work and yet they balked really that his platform wasn't big enough, you know? And it was like at 10,000. I mean, that was like a number, you know, and around the same period, I had another client who had a self-help book and, you know, she's got 20,000 followers, but here's the difference. I don't think it was the difference between 10 and 20. It was the difference between her 20,000 followers or a very engaged community. There's a lot of traction on her posts. There's a lot of interaction between, and I think that, and here's what I think the publishers didn't just say, oh, 10 isn't, like there's some magical threshold. I think they went and looked. And I think they saw, oh, wow, this person really has a community. People are talking, they're engaging, they're going to buy a book from her. And when they looked at him, you know, they saw 20 comments and they saw, you know, I mean, I think he has decent likes, but, you know, maybe just not, they didn't see that same level of like, this is really interactive and this is a space where people are talking and, you know, and so, and the other thing is she does have a podcast. I mean, so I think that for people that are building, and this is, as we did in the class, right? Like I always say to folks and this is why I love this is my pitch for book proposals and also why people should take the class, but more than that, why book proposals are so amazing. And even if you're not ready to sell the book because your platform isn't where it needs to be, the book proposal gives you the space to really figure out your marketing strategy and an aspirational strategy. Like, okay, maybe I'm not where I need to be now, but where does it make most sense for me to invest my time and efforts, So, and that might not be Instagram. I mean, I have people like, it makes no sense why they would have an Instagram following. That's not who they are. Like, they're not going to take pictures or post quotes, but they're writers. And I'm like, okay, great. Just start posting articles to Medium. Just start getting yourself out there. And like, all it takes, is that one post. I mean, I think we were talking about Tracy McMillan the other day, right? And I think it was 2012 when she had that Huffington Post piece go viral. Yeah, it was on HuffPo. I mean, at that time, it was like the medium of its time, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, you just never know, if that's a better space for you to be building a community, then go there, And so I think for me, I never want to see people just feel like, oh, I have to like build this thing on. I mean, I think Instagram is now for most people the preferred method, just because Twitter doesn't really translate into the same kind of community build unless you're like a comedian or into politics. Like, I think Twitter works really well for some people, but most of the people I work with are in the personal development world. So Instagram is sort of like the natural home for that.
Yeah.
And, but I think that like, unless it's something that really is in alignment with who you are, then like, let's figure out the other ways to really start getting content out there. So that's what we do. I mean, we really sit down and we figure out that strategy, and then, as they're working through the content piece, it's like, okay, so this is the areas in which I want to start building my platform. Okay, now I know the content that I actually want to utilize for my book. Let me start utilizing that content across my platform build as I'm getting everything else done on this proposal. And hopefully by the time I have this proposal really in order, my platform looks a little bit different and I actually have a shot at selling a book.
Oh my God, this is so great. Yes, I mean, Tracy wrote that article. She got a book deal from it. I mean, it was really like incredible. And which is essentially like what we all want by putting stuff out there. You know what I mean? We're really hoping that whatever we've put out there catches. You know what I mean? And I completely agree that it's like, find your place to do it. But I'm also from the school of like, sure, put it on Medium, but also figure out how you can put it on the other platforms, whether it's a picture of it or, whether you can post that Medium link to your Twitter and make sure that, whatever, it can be shareable there. Like, we really want people to be able to get that you're at wherever everybody else is at. Like, you're never not in the conversation. So a lot of times when I'm working with clients, they're like, well, I'm not on Twitter. And I will show them, like, I put their name into Twitter. And even though they're not on Twitter, people are talking about them on fucking Twitter. And I'm like, you have years. Sometimes we find out that my clients have press that they didn't know that they had. And I'm like, did you know this? You know what I mean? Or sometimes you find out, like, I was going to work with this guy who had a restaurant, and I guess someone had a bad experience at his restaurant. Yeah. Tweeted about it, and now that's the first tweet you see when you go and about his restaurant. So he had no way to fix that, to be like, hey man, sorry, we were having a rough night, come back in, we'll get you a drink. Like, there was no able to fix that. Like, that thing is just looming out there. You know what I mean? So I'm always like, just kind of be everywhere. You don't have to be like, Kim Kardashian on every platform, but it's like, at least be there. So when that conversation starts on that platform, you can jump in, or you can, whatever, do damage control. Should something happen, which I hope no one has to do. Please, people, please fucking take care of yourself.
Does that mean I have to finally be on Twitter, Melanie? Because I really...
Okay, so you are a writer, 100%. Twitter is for writers, and you are so smart. You are so quick. Yes, absolutely. And I feel like sometimes people get really flipped out about these platforms. And just to demystify it and break it all down, posting on social media is a photo and it's text on all platforms. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Even if you're just doing a post on Twitter that's just words, like, it will help it to have a photo. Photos do help grow that engagement. However, if it's not a photo, Twitter understands that it's just text over there. But you're a writer. You should definitely be in those conversations over there.
I think I've tweeted like 3 times. One time I was like literally taking a poop. It's like a picture of me on the toilet. I was like, this is the only time I would ever have to tweet. That was it. And I think I made like 2 other comments in the history. That's my Twitter feed.
You were totally like, yeah, bathroom breaks. Here we are. You know what I mean?
Like if I want to add Twitter into my schedule, this is the only time that I have to tweet. So there you go.
And here's the thing too about like, yeah, I understand like time, right? So I'm always from the school that you can put the same thing on all the platforms. So whatever you put on Instagram. Now here's the thing too. I've seen your Instagram posts and they can be long. You're kind of using them as a blog, which is totally fine. But even if you just kind of sum that all up into 280 characters, like really do like crazy editing on it, you know, just kind of like a moment. And then also too, some people do threads, you know, you can do a thread. If it's really like something that you really want to get out there and it's more than that one tweet, you can do those 6 or 7 or 8 threads, you know what I mean, about it. And so, because I feel like in being a writer, that is Twitter is like the writer's space. Like it really is. You're like, oh my God, no.
But I feel like the worst client. I'm like, oh no.
But see, it's so funny. But like when I talk to people about it, watching their body language, it's they do recoil, right? So usually what I would do in that moment is I would try and figure out what's going on. Like, what is the actual fear around it?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's similar. I mean, you probably would have seen that same reaction to me around Instagram a few years ago because I had yet to figure out how I could make it something that felt natural to me and not awkward.
Yeah.
You know? And it was weird because Facebook, I never had that with. Like I just always had, because, you know, and the reason, well, I know why. So in Facebook, everybody who I am friends with on Facebook, I'm friends with in real life.
Yes.
So there was never anything other than I'm just like saying something on Facebook to everybody I'm already friends with, you know, like it's just a really big room. It was like an enormous meeting, right? So that never like really threw me. The Instagram, like I knew, and I had like an Instagram account for years that was like 500 followers. It was just friends, you know? But once I decided to actually build like a public Instagram that like people are going to follow me that don't know me in real life, like that was the shift. That's where the E showed up, like, right? That I didn't know, like, how do I actually connect with people who I don't know? And I had to, I mean, community was really what allowed me to do that. That I was like, okay, like I get, like, this is fine. Like I can do it in this way. And initially I had to come in through like the mom door. Like I was doing a lot of mom content, you know, but it was like, okay, I can always bitch and moan about me. I'm a bitch and moan kind of mother because I really should never have been a mom. Like one of those people. It's like, what was I thinking? It's like I fell into some job that like, you know, all of a sudden, like 10 years later, you were like, this was not the right career track. Like you can't leave.
Well, I think you're spot on where it's like Facebook is a lot of friends and family. It is that. And here's the thing, that now after this current climate can be a very toxic place for a lot of people because it is friends and family, right? So then we have friends and family. Then on Instagram, we have friends and family and some strangers.
Yes.
Then on Twitter, we have straight up strangers because
That's what it is.
Yeah, Aunt Judy is not fucking on Twitter. No. I do know, though, she did make an account because she wanted to follow Trump, right? And she's just got an egg profile. She maybe followed you. And then you're like, oh, Aunt Judy's watching. She's not there anymore because she didn't figure out what was going on. And that guy's gone. And so, it is that kind of like, but I also feel like, too, what happens a lot of times is, when we grow too, as not only creatives, but also as business people, because you have a creative business, you help people, you coach people, you offer services, you get to the point where you reach the limit of friends and family. Absolutely. And you're like, I got to start considering how I am attractive to strangers and also to larger opportunities. And I would suggest you being on Twitter simply because, you know, you've got some new books that you're working on. If they get featured anywhere, those larger opportunities are always on Twitter. Yeah. Press, publications. You want them, if they're talking about you, to be like, at Kristen McGuiness, you know what I mean? Or whatever your handle is. Totally. And then you want to make sure that you're there if that conversation is happening. You don't want to miss that opportunity to retweet or to think or to ride that moment or whatever. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I do feel, I mean, similarly, the one area that I have felt like I feel what I would like to do on Twitter. Like, I think, again, I think it's like all about figuring out which door do you feel comfortable entering, right? Because some can feel like a big drawbridge with a moat in front of them. And you're like, I am not taking that route. So I've always thought like I actually would love to get into the habit of retweeting and like making my comments on other like I love that about Twitter. It's one of my favorite things that like that's not you don't do that on Instagram, right?
Right.
Like I've always loved that on Facebook is the share and that's where I'm actually my funniest usually is like when I'm sharing other people's content, I'm making my little funny comment, right?
Yes.
I'm very good at that and I enjoy it,
Yes.
I'm like snark, snark, snark. So.
Well, and I also feel like too, because people, what happens also too, so when I make a post on, the difference between making a post on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, on Facebook, hundreds of people, Melanie, it's just the Melanie party.
Yeah.
Same thing on Instagram. Oh my God, so great. Twitter, 3 people. You know what I mean? I don't know what it is. People just don't respond in the same way. However, here's the dirty trick, and I'm telling this to my audience as well. Go over to your Twitter and go into the menu, go into the settings, go into the analytics and see how many people you're reaching and it will blow your mind. Even if you're not even using Twitter to like any sort of world domination, people are like, whoa, like I didn't realize, like I have clients who like are realizing they're reaching like hundreds of thousands of people. They're like, how? And I'm like, it's weird. People don't engage in the same way, but they're seeing your stuff. So know that about your analytics and how they can kind of help you to understand that. You know what I mean? So it's crazy.
All right. One more thing can I give you a child? I'll give you a child and then I can do Twitter.
So you've got a couple of books that you are that you're working on right now. So talk about where they're at right now and what kind of your plan is for that stuff.
Well, one of them is a novel. It's called Live Through This. I started writing it in 2016. It's set in the year of 2016. I did not anticipate that year was going to go the way it went. Like at the time when I started writing, I was like, and then Hillary Clinton's going to be president. And it was like literally like the day like after I was like, so that went another direction. But it opens actually with a mass shooting. And it's really about one woman's realization of like, we can't keep quiet anymore. So it kind of has that feel of Network of like, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. And
I just got goosebumps. Network is such an amazing movie. Yes. And
I like that moment, when he screams out the window and everybody joins him. Like I always, we've had that. We've gotten to see it now a few times culturally, but I remember that always stuck with me. I think I saw it in like the late 90s and there was such a long period where it didn't feel like anyone was hanging out the window and they were just like trapped inside angry, and when I started writing the book, it was already about that. It was already just feeling that way as a human, that like, I'm just mad as hell. And like, the system just doesn't work anymore, and, so that's Live Through This. And so it is I'm literally doing final edits this week and it is going out to a few friends, including our friend, Sarah Blake.
Yeah.
So she has, presuming she likes it, she's agreed to blurb it and a couple other folks. So I'm trying to get some blurbs on it before it goes to publishers, hopefully next month. So my agent's pregnant right now and literally her pregnancy is my deadline. I'm like, oh my God. She's due in May. And I'm like, I
gotta get this done. But also too, you're already thinking about it. So this is what I'm always trying to tell people is that like, don't wait to come out of the cave to like get this stuff done. It's like, you're thinking about what you're going to need for marketing. You're going to need blurbs. You're going to need, reviews if people don't understand what that means. It's like, you're going to need to send this to people so that will help then this package. And then also to the ultimate sale, whether it's to a publisher or self-publishing. All of these things you need to start thinking of before it's all done, right? Before the train has left the station.
Absolutely. Well, and so, years ago, I had the same book. I had a draft of it in 2017 that I took out. And I realized very quickly that my platform was actually an issue. Like I had these really nice things. Like I'm an LA Times bestselling author. I've worked with all these people. I actually worked in traditional book publishing. I know editors. I mean, still I'm friends with plenty of editors, and I couldn't get an agent. And it became really clear to me. I mean, there was stuff wrong with the book, but I think it was more that it was like, so what, you published a book 10 years ago and nobody cares, right? Like, so, I mean, did I have anybody to, like, was I going to sell my second book to the same people who bought 5150? I mean, maybe some, but I didn't have like an army of readers, right? So that was for me like a big wake up call around like, I got to start figuring out a way to build a platform. And I did. I mean, for me, I have focused on Instagram, and I really, like, I started and then I stopped. And then this year last summer, I had a real come to Jesus. Actually, in pandemic, I had a real come to Jesus where I just kept getting in situations where I would end up doing like a lot of work for other people who had big platforms. And I wasn't sort of getting any glory because I was like the non-platform person, right? Like it was like, oh, you're not the star. So you go over there, just do the work, go sit in the closet and type, And it was like, I was like, I am the star. Like, how do you not, like, I can tap dance as fast as any of them,
But it's so good for you to share this information, because I think that now, even with the pandemic, people are realizing you can't just be offline because it's just not even a thing.
Yeah.
What? How? You know what I mean? Like, it's so challenging. Well, we're going to go over and keep this conversation going because I want to hear more about this challenge and how you've turned it all around, because I feel like so many people have this, right? Where it's just totally like, I'm going to focus over here and I think the fear is that like we can't divide our focus, right? Or it's like the not having time, but we do have to, because we don't want to rob from that future self that's going to need that support, whether that's, 10 minutes, just 3 times a week, sitting there on the toilet or blocking yourself in the bathroom and just like, I'm going to make one tweet today. And even if it's a retweet with a snarky comment, like I'm just going to do it because I know that there's going to be that time where I'm in a room with somebody and they're going to be judging me in the same way that you've passed judgment on people as well. Like, oh, this is working, this isn't working. And we don't want to have regret when those moments are happening. We want to know that like, wow, I really did everything I could. And maybe this just isn't the time. We don't want to say like, God, I just didn't fucking hook myself up during this time. You know what I mean? But it's hard. It is something that it's a new muscle that people are also learning now that they really have to flex. So
yeah. And I think a lot of times we think of creative projects as our children. And it's a little bit like, that's great if you can dress your kid up in a really cute outfit and send it out into the world, but you actually have to give it more skills than that, And it does include like, do they need, like my kids, for some reason, both my kids, it's like they need special, like my son needs like speech therapy now. And like what, I'm not going to do that. Like, he's adorable. Right. But like, of course I'm going to give him what he needs in order to help him be successful in life, whether that's painful or not, whether it's extra work or not. Like I'm going to dedicate the time to ensure that like his road to success is smooth as possible. And it's no different for our creative projects, which require the same level of dedication. So.
Oh, perfect. You guys, we're going to hop on over to my Patreon and keep this conversation with Kristen McGuiness going. If you want any information about Kristen McGuiness, you can get her at storyboxing.com. She's a fantastic coach and teacher. I'm taking her current 5 weeks to book proposal, the Promotional Rescue workshop book, Promotional Rescue workbook. That's what it is. I'm like, it's still new to me. It's still new to me, and I'm learning so much about how to put this all together in a book so that I can present it to somebody. And she's also got a memoir workshop coming up as well. She's got her book 5150, which is available on all platforms to get. So we're going to go over to my Patreon, patreon.com/Melanie Vesey, and keep talking with Kristen about crushing book proposals. So we'll see you over there.
Bye. See you soon.